everybody else today. Let me turn this thing on.
All right, everybody, I think we're going to get started. Thanks for coming out. We've got plenty of handouts at the table for folks who haven't gotten one. I invite you to go grab all the stuff. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank the members of the Olympic Peninsula Forest Collaborative for putting in a whole lot of time and energy to move the needle forward with regard to how we manage our natural resources on the Olympic Peninsula. I have often said this is a model that we could use in Congress. People who have expertise in some instances and may not always agree on everything, actually being willing to sit down and talk to each other and try to work towards our common goals, I think is really important. So you're going to get a chance to hear from all these folks, and then we're going to engage those of you who have thoughts that you want to share. To help facilitate that, I just ask that the folks in the audience, if you have a question, if you can stick to asking a question, and that way we can get to more people. I just want to say up front kind of the rationale behind this. I think in our region, we are very aware of the importance of our forests. Certainly economically as a source of timber that support our mills and provide decent middle class jobs and drive the local economy, and also as forests that attract visitors from all over the world to come and spend their vacations and take in some of the amazing sites we have on the Olympic Peninsula. And oftentimes that's a tough balancing act to have both of those values, and I know that. I grew up in Port Angeles, and I got to see firsthand how challenging some of those issues are. The lifeblood of my hometown, and a lot of towns on the peninsula, was the timber industry. And I know many kids whose parents and relatives worked in the industry, and as harvest levels declined, I saw a lot of my friends' parents lose their jobs, and some of my neighbors lose their jobs, and it had a huge impact on me. That's why I work professionally in economic development, and it's frankly what motivated me to get into public service. And I have a very strong appetite for seeing us kind of move this conversation forward. Rather than having folks who've traditionally been at odds stay at odds, what you've seen out of this group is folks from the conservation community and from the timber industry look to where we can find some common ground and move past some of the debates of the past. And I think the good news is you've seen from both sides of the table that there are actually some ways in which we can responsibly increase our harvest levels in a way that also benefits the health of the forest. And that's a real big driver to this effort. And when we talk to the Forest Service, and I want to thank the folks from the Forest Service who are here, we realized that that we need some new approaches to dealing with our working forests. And one of those approaches involves collaboratives, which in different regions have been successful as a way of driving consensus and making projects happen and driving outcomes and making it easier for those projects to actually become reality and put people to work in the woods rather than putting people to work in courtrooms. So we're here after really almost a couple of years now of having people trying to work through some of these issues and to try to build some trust about how we restore our forests and promote harvest levels and support our local communities. We officially launched this last May, and it really couldn't happen without the folks that you're going to hear from tonight. So that was phase one. And now we're really entering phase two, which is, now that we've actually found some consensus, now we're trying to create some outcome. And here's the thing, we can't successfully finish projects, and we can't make this effort truly sustainable without the input of the communities in this area. And that's why we're here, to invite your participation and your input. We got a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm very hopeful that we can actually drive some outcomes and increase harvest levels in a responsible way. We brought out Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack to the Peninsula this last fall, and he recognized the value of this approach. I want to read you what he said. He said, "I think this is an example of what needs to be done more of in this country." And thankfully, you've seen the Department of Agriculture actually step up. We've been working with them on identifying some opportunities for grants to support this effort. So far, we have some assistance from a few staff members from the USDA who are going to help with some of the administrative work necessary to keep this effort moving forward. I will also I'm a member of the House Appropriations Committee, and I'm working to help see more support for collaboratives all around this region, because I think it's a way to move the conversation forward around our working forest, rather than, again, spending time with costly litigation and delays. I think anyone who's in this room knows that sometimes these issues are tough. And the only way we're going to be successful on this is to keep at it. So I'm proud of the progress that we've made together. And with that, I want to make sure you don't just hear from me, but you get to hear from the folks who've been putting in the time and the effort on this and their expertise. So I want to thank everyone participating tonight. So as MC for the evening, I'd like to start by introducing Olympic National Forest Acting Supervisor Larry Sandoval. Larry and Rita LaFord and the Olympic staff have just been fantastic to work with, and we are very blessed to have them helping this move along. So let me invite up Larry to the microphone. Thanks, Larry.
Go ahead and try and just go from the mic hanging right there instead of holding on to it. Folks, can you hear me okay in the back of the room? Great. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you to the Congressman for helping set this up this evening. Thanks to the collaborative for taking time out of your busy schedules to join this effort. And thanks for those from the public that have come out to learn more about this collaborative and the efforts that are going on here with us. As the Congressman mentioned, I'm the acting forest supervisor. Rita LaFord, our forest supervisor, is on detail. She started back in January, mid-January, down to a planning position in the regional office in Portland. I was asked to come and backfill behind her during her absence, and so I came 11th of January, I think it was, I started, and I'll be working as the acting forest supervisor through about the middle of May when Rita returns. My normal position, I'm the Natural Resources Staff Officer on the Whitman out in Northeast Oregon. And I got to tell you, this experience working with collaboratives is new to me. When I worked, prior to coming back to Region 6, I worked in Region 2 in Wyoming and Colorado, and for a short stint back in Wisconsin. I had not worked with forest collaborative groups during my time on those other regions, those other forests, and so coming to the Whitman, where we had a collaborative that was still a little bit in its infancy, taking on some large projects, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, but I think there is a lot of value added with these independent bodies that are coming together, trying to pull the same direction. A lot of diverse interests, as you can see at the table here with the panel. And as the Congressman alluded to before, kind of the norm, if we don't have these folks sitting at the table working together and looking for solutions for the restoration of our forests, we end up in court, and that's not really getting us anywhere where we need to be in terms of restoring the forest, providing for habitat restoration, providing logs to go to market, and so on. And so really applaud the effort of this collaborative and the work that they've done to date, and they're going to continue to do with this latest project. But I really do see the value added by these groups coming together, so thank you for that. So collaboration does take time and effort, that's for sure, but I think it really is good when folks do engage with us to gain a little bit better and deeper understanding of what it takes to get the job done. I think they're learning that as they move forward through these projects. There's a lot of process that's inherent to what we do. And I think that it's eye-opening for everybody that's involved, and the public, I think, is well aware of a lot of it as well. But you know, there are a lot of complexities and realities we face, whether it's with our timber sale layouts, completing all the various necessary NEPA steps or what have you. There's a lot that goes into the effort, and so these folks are learning that. We're all kind of learning that together. One last thing I want to say is this will be a great opportunity as well to kind of kick off, in terms of relationship building with the public, with the collaborative, and others as we look into the years ahead, moving into forest plan revision with the Northwest Forest Plan. Obviously, we've got some sideboards that have been given to us that we've been living with and managing our forests under for the last couple of decades plus now, I guess. And we're going to be moving forward with the revision process in Oregon, Washington, Northern California for us in the coming years. And so, it's great to see folks out here engage with us, engage with what's happening on the National Forest, and look forward to more engagement moving forward in that process. Last thing I'll close with is, just the relationships that we're building tonight, that we've been building through this process with the collaborative. We'll build and strengthen those today are really only going to help future planning efforts, whether it's forest plan revision or local projects for the forest. So thank you all again, and look forward to the presentations this evening. I'll be around afterwards if there's questions. And wanted to also introduce Dean Yoshina out here to my left. He's the district ranger for the 50-mile Ranger District out of Quilcene. And so we'll both be here this evening to answer any questions that folks might have as well.
Thanks, Larry. And again, I want to just echo what I said earlier about the terrific role that the Forest Service has played in trying to move this effort along. And please extend that to Rita as well. Next up, we have Matt Comisky, who is with the American Forest Resource Council, and John Owen with the Pew Charitable Trust. Matt and John are going to present the collaborative's governance document, sort of talk about how this group has organized.
Okay. So first off, thank you everyone for coming, and hopefully you all have a handout of this.
You guys all have this? Right there at the table.
Governance document. Don't fear, I'm not going to go through it line by line. I think just for a little quick background of kind of how this document came into. Can everybody hear me all right this way? No? Maybe? Oh yeah, I'll put it back on. The speaker. I hear myself before so as we came together as a group and started to think about how we were going to govern and manage this organization, we went out and looked at a lot of different collaboratives that are scattered around the West, particularly ones that some of us are engaged in. Some of the information that came as kind of a basis came from, there's a collaborative on the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, and I'm a part of Pinchot Partners. We use some of their governance documents, some guiding language, a couple of the collaboratives out of Oregon. And so we really tried to pull out what we knew worked and discard what we knew wasn't working. But I think the big thing that we really kind of settled on was it's really easy to put together, the nuts and bolts of who's officers and who's a coordinator and all that kind of stuff. That was easy. But the big thing we really kind of decided we needed to up front was to come up with kind of this purpose and goal statement, which you'll see on the front page. And that really is kind of our, I guess for lack of it's kind of a lengthy mission statement, I guess, in a way, really to kind of guide what this collaborative is about and what projects and what we're looking forward to moving towards doing. So, John, you got anything else to?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, just to sort of echo a little bit more about what Matt said, and then to
touch base on the governance document itself. So one thing, if you turn to page 2, in addition to the hilarious graph of like people putting puzzle pieces together on the table, which actually is sort of what we've been doing, you'll see below that there is a list of about 16 participants in the collaborative. And I think that's actually a really important list to focus on, because you'll see that there are a mix of major timber industry representatives and mills from the Peninsula, as well as major conservation organizations that also work on public lands on the Peninsula. And these, really this whole collaborative and the mission statement and what we agreed to is really just this paragraph on the front page and these 6 goals. And it actually took a long time to get all of those groups to sort of agree with this. And it came through trust, it came through building trust and having a lot of conversations to focus not on the areas where we disagree, but what are the areas where we do agree? And are there enough of them that it makes sense for everybody to move forward? And what we found, and a lot, which is part of the reason that we worked on this, was with the great encouragement and leadership of Representative Kilmer. What we found is that there really are things that everyone can agree on that are win-win-win. And with some great support from the Forest Service and Secretary Vilsack, we're making progress on that. But those 6 goals and that mission statement are really what we're supporting. So.
I think, and one of the other key things that I think is important that the general public understands, and really, it took some effort for those of us who are not fluent in the processes of the Forest Service and collaboration in the bigger picture, is to know that, the Forest Service is a partner and they're a member, but they're also a non-voting member. You really are kind of putting together projects that we together feel like we can come together, propose, and then work with the Forest Service. But ultimately, the key thing to remember is we still have to do NEPA. We still have to follow all the other regulations, Northwest Forest Plan. And ultimately, the Forest Service is still the decision maker. What we're really doing is building that consensus among a stakeholder group to try to reach these goals and help the Forest Service move forward faster as they go through their work. So I think that's one kind of key thing as you look through this governance document to kind of key in on, is that Forest Service does play a role, but how they play that role I think is important. So and basically we are learning as we go. As with any new organization, there's progress, there's retreat from progress at times, and then we make progress going back forward. So I think since we're probably going to try to take questions kind of towards the end, if you got any questions on this, we're more than happy to answer them, but we'll kind of try to catch them at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, guys. I also want to make sure before we move on to acknowledge some of the folks who are in the audience. Our state representative for the area, Drew McEwen, is here. Drew, I want to make sure to acknowledge your presence. And Grace Harbor County Commissioner Frank Gordon is here. Thank you for schlepping here. I also want to acknowledge Brian Hatfield, who works for the Office of the Governor doing rural economic development work. Thank you for taking time out to be here. With that, let me kick it over to Bear Churchill at the end of the row from the Stewardship Forestry Consulting Group. Toby Thaler with the Olympic Forest Coalition Board, and David Marshall with Sierra Pacific Industries. And they're going to talk about actually some brass tacks here about some of the pilot projects, different forest treatments that the group is considering. So I kick it to you.
Yeah, where's Dave over there? We can all just kind of chime in as we go. I've position at the University of Washington and the School of Forest Environmental Sciences, and also work as a consultant with a variety of forest projects and work with collaboratives. A number of them here in Washington and a little bit in Oregon, and I can definitely say that they do work. It takes time, but we have seen over the last 10 years or so, since these are really 15 years since these have really started to get going, that it has improved the Forest Service's ability to manage our forests, and it's also reduced the amount of conflict, the amount of lawsuits, litigation, appeals, all of that. That hasn't gone away. There's still people out there who usually aren't part of the collaboratives, who do propose projects now and then. This is not necessarily an Olympics, but another forest, but that is greatly diminished, and certainly what it was in the height of the difficult time. So I'll just start with that. It's encouraging, I think, to have that come to the Peninsula. So we've started with our main project, the collaborative, is this pilot project. It's just doing one 70-acre thinning project out by Lake Crescent. It's called H2Z on the Solduck River, just near the Solduck River. And the idea is to, we're choosing a small area because we can do it under what's called a categorical exclusion, which is a NEPA, component of NEPA or an avenue of NEPA where you don't have to do as much work as you do with a full environmental assessment or EIS or something like that. So the idea is that we can do this faster than if we were to take on a larger project. And the idea is to try some new things in this stand, some things that the Forest Service right now isn't necessarily doing, maybe is thinking about, but hasn't done recently, both in terms of some more intensive forestry treatments, some larger gaps than the Forest Service is doing true gaps where you're actually removing all the trees from the gaps, doing some heavier thinning treatments, but also doing some more variable treatments, leaving some more dead wood behind. Again, looking for that win-win between a variety of interests here. And it's definitely, we're doing this in an adaptive management area, and so the goal is to try some new things, and again, in partnership with the Forest Service, so that we can see how that shakes out and learn from that, and then the idea is to take those lessons and apply them in the larger Forest Service projects over time. So I don't know if you guys want to jump in or add anything.
Yeah. And I should have introduced Knox Marshall as well from Murphy Company. So be quiet. Yeah.
No, I think one of the key things is that for me, the biggest key thing is when we went out there with Toby and Jill and went and looked at this stand, we actually came up with an agreement, and we have a framework of actually things we want to try out here. And the other thing is we're going to monitor these things as time goes on. And I think we have an agreement between one side of the aisle and the other side of the aisle on how we're going to move forward. And I think that was the biggest hurdle to get across. And John talked about trust. And we trust each other. And we think that we can actually get the more volume out of the national forest. We haven't got much done yet, but we think just by having that trust and agreement on these different treatments, so we're going to try here, that we will get some incremental volume out. And I know a lot of people are saying we haven't got any done. There's some skeptics out there, but having the agreement on this whole culture things and trying something new is a big step. because where we were, it's a big step from there.
I think we graduated from pessimism to optimism in the group and decided we did trust each other, we're gonna do this, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel, we see it. And, you know, you get out on the ground, you get out with Toby, you get with Jill, who's not here, sorry, she is, and John, and you see the amount that you do agree on. And it's not about whether or not you cut this specific tree, it's about creating common roles within what we're trying to do. And, you know, we all are pretty, you know, amazed by the consolidation that's happening in the industry and the amount of those that closed down. We're here for a long run, we're a family-owned business, Murphy Company is in Elmo, Washington. And, you know, we know this is a path to sustain this business that we have and sustain the people we employ. And it's really important to us. So, getting through the barriers of trying to do things, you know, not necessarily in cooperation was really easy to get by. And, you know, now we're really no longer pessimistic, optimistic about the outcome of getting this project through.
The other thing that I think the key thing is sitting in the room with the folks at all the meetings we've gone to at the Forest Service is, I think they're listening to us when we have, and they see Toby and Knox and I and John all agreeing on some. So I think a lot of the stuff that we're bringing up, they're thinking, well, it's not going to be so controversial kind of thing. And I would say that's a safe thing to say. And I think, you know, in the NEPA documents moving forward, I think that will have an impact on that. And so.
I think that's actually an important point. When we had the initial conversation with the Forest Service about the value of collaboratives and whether to kick this off, part of the message was not only that the collaborative produced projects that could increase harvest levels, but that it set a dynamic where the Forest Service could also do more. It gave them some cues as to what was in the safe space where they might have been more risk averse. And so if you look at some of the forests where they've kicked out collaboratives, that's very much what has happened and has been a driver of increased harvest and improvements to a healthy forest. Toby, you want to kick in?
Yeah, these guys pretty much covered it. He spoke for me.
That's
So if you look at Forest Coalition's interest is our stated mission is to improve the habitat and biodiversity in the forest on the peninsula. It's starting to recover from the heavy cutting in the earlier decades, and in order to facilitate that, that's not our only concern. So that's our mission. So we also are concerned about the communities on the peninsula, and having timber flowing off the federal and state lands is what's needed to keep community alive on the peninsula. So working together, we're able to give the Forest Service the room to maneuver and do things hopefully quicker. And it seems like it's not happening very quickly, but you know, I really want us to get a couple more units. I want us to find a unit on the drier east side and start working on some more sales. And the real crux of it for us is the long haul of having everybody help monitor this over time, so that we can actually prove what the science tells us is true, that thinning makes more wood for the mills. If it's done better, then that's what we want to make happen. Thanks.
Paul, do you want to, as a representative of Interfor, do you want to chime in at all?
Well, I just wanted to say that, again, that by providing a mechanism or a vehicle, this group is allowing or augmenting, the Forest Service mission, and not only preserving and maintaining habitat for all species, but or critical species, but this process allows for the enhancement and further development of that, while at the same time producing viable quantities of volume or wood products to come to various mills around the peninsula. That's an important key thing that this group does, and that, again, it's still augmented to help the agency accomplish their goals as well. So.
Derek, do you want to, you spoke to the H to Z, but we didn't really mention the Donkey Creek project. Do you want to just quickly speak to what happened there and you know, sort of the expediting of that sale?
Sure, I can the idea was that the Forest Service had a project in the Hum Tulips area that the NEPA and the planning was already done, and they didn't have the layout staff to get it all ready to sell, as they had more in the planning pipeline than they did an ability to get stuff laid out on the ground. So a group of us, Dave and a guy who worked for him and myself and a few others, essentially laid out 400 or so acre timber sale we again worked with the Forest Service staff to make sure we're following all their procedures and whatnot, and you know, figured out where all the streams were and where to lay out the boundaries. And again, we had the basic maps, but there's a lot of decisions that need to get made on the ground. And then also did the whole logging systems design as well, and some back and forth with the Forest Service on some helicopter units. And yeah, Dave and others. And the idea was that allowed, or was going to be allowed the Forest Service to sell that sale earlier, and basically increase the amount that they were selling in this year, or that fiscal year. So.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, as a sign of collaboration, so Jill, who is with AFCO, the Forest Coalition, she lives out on the West End and does a lot of work out in the woods as a biologist. And one of the things that happened was that when she and Dave were out with Derek doing some of the layout, she condemned the bug spray that Dave was wearing and encouraged him to use herbal mosquito repellent, which I think he really appreciated.
Until I broke out.
Yeah, yeah. So it really talked about harmony. No, but actually, the reason I tell that story is because, like, honestly, this has been, like, what Knox said, just a turn from pessimism to optimism, and what Dave talked about. I mean, that's really how it started. I mean, Representative Kilmer just got us in the room. The first couple of meetings were classic, old school, adversarial, you know, no people not knowing each other. And he just sort of kept bringing them back, and you know, we started to like each other and trust each other and realize that there was actually common ground here. And, you know, for AFCO and other conservation groups, you know, it's like, look, we want to see more habitat restoration, and more importantly, and Matt can go into detail on this, and I imagine folks like Patty and others here are very familiar with the benefit of stewardship sales on the national forest, which is, I think, as most people realize, that most timber sales, unless it's a stewardship sale, the receipts that go back to the agency just go into the treasury, and that's it. It doesn't come back to the forest. And the stewardship sale, which can be done if you have a collaborative behind it, and that's what this pilot project is. It allows the receipts from the sale for the agency to then reinvest that into aquatic restoration projects to help fish, et cetera, right? And so that's a huge benefit that the conservation community sees, which is, look, we can do more and different habitat restoration projects that can yield more volume per acre for the industry, but then at the same time have the benefit of the receipts being invested in a lot of the aquatic, non-harvest related restoration stuff that needs to be done. And so, you know, once we sort of saw that there was really this win-win-win opportunity, and sort of like what Knox said, pessimism turned to optimism, and to kind of build on what Dave said, it's like we all now like are really excited about it and are really want it to succeed. And we just have totally frank, great conversations about how to move things forward, and it's terrific. So.
Okay, I had one summary kind of point, and that is, my experience that there's two major impediments to timber flow. One is lack of adequate staffing and budget at the agency level, at the managing agency level, and the other is environmental constraints. The collaborative is designed to overcome and facilitate meeting both of those, making the agencies staffing go further by helping them out and getting more bang for the buck on the environmental side and less obstruction.
So I think it's a good time to transition into Matt and John talking a little bit about the membership of the group, and for folks who are interested in kind of following along and getting involved, if you can talk about that.
Okay, I think real quick though, since we're 3 minutes ahead, I'm going to go back and expand on the stewardship aspect just a little bit, so the folks that aren't familiar with it can understand a little bit. It does get to be a little bit of an interesting balance. It is one of the contracting methods the Forest Service has. The challenge with it, and, you know, for me personally, is that the counties don't receive their 25% share like they would out of a traditional timber sale. So, you know, we need to be aware of that balance there that needs to happen. But at the same time, counties who are fortunate to have milling infrastructure do receive the benefits of having that milling infrastructure stay in place and continue to operate. So there's a balance there. There's two different ways that the restoration aspects of it, and it can go beyond aquatics, but aquatics tends to be one place. And that can be everything from road maintenance to invasive species. A couple of forests I worked on, the collaboratives that we're engaged in, we funnel a ton of money back into doing restoration aspects of road maintenance, because that has benefits that fall out to not only the water quality issue, but access issues, whether it's for recreation or timber, has lots of benefits there. And so it's something that you can build your contracts, and not to get too far in the weeds, but you can build those restoration projects either upfront into the timber sale contract, the stewardship contract, to help pay for some of those needs. And then if there's excess revenues from that sale, rather than it going back to the Treasury in DC and disappearing into the massive congressional pot, it gets to stay on your forest and be reinvested through some of these restoration projects. So it has a real good possibility for win-win for a broad range of stakeholders, but we do always have to kind of keep in mind with that balance of county needs and stewardship projects when it comes to kind of that restoration community side of it. So with that, John, let's jump into the membership.
And it's all you.
It's all me?
Yeah,
wow.
membership.
Okay. So we've got Joe with some sign-up sheets. We're going to pass these around. As you've heard, this has been like a 2-year process. This collaborative bit off a huge thing. Collaboratives are typically very place-based. So when you choose the Olympic National Forest as your place, and it's got this big donut hole in the middle, it takes a lot of work to get all the way around it. So we're kind of on this road show right now. You'll see the future public meetings down there, but what we're really trying to do is get the public engagement out there. If you're interested in just signing up to keep on our mailing list, find out what we're doing, all of the typical data fields are there to fill in on the piece of paper as it goes around. If you're interested in joining as a member, what we're trying to do is basically tally as we get through all these meetings, everybody who's interested in it, and then we'll be doing another outreach to really show, kind of figure out how we're going to put all this together, with the fact that we are going to have people in Forks who are interested, and people here in Mason County, and people in Grace Harbor County, and people in Jefferson County. So if you're interested in that membership thing, check that box. You will read on there that, you know, we really would appreciate that if you're interested in joining to be a member, that you are willing to agree to and help support and push forward the goals that are listed on this governance document.
And I think they're right on one of these here as well.
It's right there.
They're right there.
And I'll tell you why we're kind of firm and want to hold to that. I've seen other collaboratives who started out as a very watershed restoration, vegetation management focused collaborative. It ended through processes not of their own making. Issues like recreation and access management that were not part of the original goals and vision of that group. And it's really caused some stumbling blocks and really slowed the group down from progressing. And so we feel by keeping a very focused set of goals and directions, it's going to allow us to keep moving forward. And so it's not that there won't be benefits that flow out of these type of projects to deal with some of those other issues. We just don't want to take those on within our collaborative. And so that's why we're really encouraging people that want to sign up to be a member to say, yes, we're willing to support these bullet points and this purpose. Anything else?
No, that's it. Yeah, and one other thing I think we probably sort of forgot to explain is that early on, looking at other models of other collaboratives, when we realized we had a possibility to do some stuff that might work, we talked to him and figured out that one of the things that really makes other collaboratives work is if the collaborative can actually hire a forester who has experience with this stuff. I don't think we explained that just yet. And so Derek Churchill of Stewardship Forestry is someone that the group huddled together, and the conservation group pulled some resources to help hire Derek, who was well regarded by both industry and the conservation community. And then industry would donate a hell of a lot of time, of Dave's time, and Knox's time, and everyone's time, and to go out and do some of this layout stuff. And so everyone started having skin in the game, and with Derek, who has experience in other collaboratives and expertise, it allows us, in working with the agency, it allows us to move a lot of these things forward. So that's the structure I think we forgot to explain. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So I want to open it up to anyone in the audience who might have a question for the participants, or if you have any questions, ideas, concerns, suggestions. Okay, go for it.
I just have a question, maybe for you folks, maybe it's for me, I don't know. But I'm curious about who's not in the room tonight. As a resident of Mason County, it concerns me that there are so few people in the room. I'm kind of wondering what your experience has been elsewhere on the peninsula, and why you think this is a small group. No offense to the few and the proud.
We had quite a bunch of people in the Forks one, a lot more than this one. We were expecting 30 to 40 people tonight, and I don't know.
And a lot of the logging community is really engaged and really cares about this. I mean, they may be one of the biggest skeptics right now. We've got a lot of questions about that, and they want to know that, that they feel that going from, a lot of them have been on the peninsula for, many generations, and seeing the transition from the good old days to maybe the stale days, to now we're telling them we're going to move the pendulum the other direction, as we believe we have, is they, they're not represented here tonight, to my knowledge. But it's got a lot of interest. I get a lot of calls from the contractors, foresters from the private lands. You're here, that's a great sign for green diamonds.
I'm everywhere, I'm honest.
But, Maryland Ring is a member, so we're getting Norm Shaft to participate a little bit. But, it really is, it's down to, a few members of the industry on the manufacturing side where we are, fundamentally reliant on public timber supplies. And those public timber supplies are things that we really have to sustain our businesses. That, the peninsula is really shrunk. And, you know, two of us up here are brothers, myself and Dave, so it's he and I and Paul kind of looking around the room, and we sometimes wonder the same thing, where are the rest of them? But they're not really there. I mean,
Although, I mean, in Forest, there was a lot of turnout. And, I mean, I would say, you know, I mean, what we're seeing particularly in the contract logger crowd and all that is what Knox said, there's a lot of skepticism, but there's also a lot of interest. I mean, they're interested in coming out, and then you know, we also find, in addition to skeptics, there are a lot of people who were signing up, and we're really excited about it.
they were, yeah.
So-
And they were most skeptical of Dave, believe it or not.
Yeah.
That's when they were
Well, we all
skeptical.
are.
They're
Yeah.
like, this is crazy, you're not gonna get anywhere. We're like, yes, we are, we are gonna get somewhere.
So one thing I would invite Patty and for others in the room, you know, we've got plenty more sign-up sheets, and you know, we outreach to not just to the local paper, but to a lot of the business community and a lot of the local civic leadership, and I'm grateful for those of you who showed up. But I would encourage you to reach out to the local chamber and say, hey, this is something that really presents an opportunity for our region, and if you want to keep up to date on it, here's how to sign up to stay in the loop. Even folks who aren't in this room can still sign up, either to participate or even just to kind of get on the mailing list so that they can follow along. So we'll extend that invitation to the broader business community and to the broader community at large, but it'd certainly be valuable if others could as well.
And one more thing, Derek, we'll have the meeting minutes from this meeting on our website here hopefully in the next couple of days. So that's something with more support from USDA and Conservation Commission. We're going to have those online as well, so folks can check back and see what the content was. Other questions?
And Joe, I would add, it is interesting, and I don't know if the time of day had any kind of factor into it, but our meeting in Forks is held during the middle of the day, right around lunchtime. And we had probably, almost 70 people in the room.
It's like standing room only.
And so, and I've actually seen this with the collaborative I'm on GP. We've shifted some of our meetings to actually evening to try to get more engagement. We actually get less people show up than during the day. And so it's I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but,
Most of the people are watching the Ducks game.
Yeah, that was a bad scheduling error.
Any other questions? I want to invite, with that, I'm going to, oh wait, we got one more. Go
So
for it.
I'm from the Forks gang, so I would say this is quite a drop in participation. So maybe you can do the same thing that we're doing. We came to this meeting after being at the Forks meeting. Maybe now Mason County can go to the next one in Grays Harbor and help promote it there.
Right.
But my question to the group tonight, in studying this as you've evolved over the past 2 years, when this was first introduced in Port Angeles by Congressman Kilmer, there was a group there or a conversation about a collaborative on a forest in Northeast Washington. So in trying to learn as this went along what was going on, I focused on that particular forest to try to learn about this. Have you tried to take on any, to determine any kind of parallels in what the other collaboratives on the forests in Washington State, and I want to center here in Washington State, and not nationwide, might be doing that are similar interests besides litigation that may be going on with that Northeast one?
Well, I mean, just to speak to that, one of the things that has been great about both Matt and also Derek is that both of them work on, I mean, I think in some capacity, almost every other collaborative in Washington State. And so when we were working on this and putting this stuff together, that both Derek and Matt helped draw from the Northeast Washington one as well as GP, right? I mean, that right here.
yeah, I mean, I'd say, I personally, I'm on the board of directors of Peninsula Partners. I participate in the Little Natchez Working Group, which is a subset of the Tosh CFLR collaborative in Eastern Washington. I participate in the North Central Forest Health Collaborative. I'm on this one, and I live vicariously through email of the South Gifford Pinchot Collaborative. There are similarities that we draw on. I mean, Derek's been engaged and does work for the Northeast group, the North Central group, as well as others in Oregon. There are similarities, there are differences. You get into the entire difference of forest types once you cross the mountains, creates a little different dynamic there. I think the biggest parallels that I see to what we can do and what the types of projects we're working on is probably with the different Pinchot group, and then with the relatively, really young, newly formed Darien group. So I think there are parallels, there's some learning stuff. There's some things that do line up perfectly with New Fix's group from Northeast. There's some stuff that just doesn't because of the mix of who the stakeholders and players are there and how they went about their process versus how we're going about our process.
Just say too, specifically about NewFIC, you know, they took on this A to Z project. We're only doing H to Z, but and that is it's been done in a few other places, but it's a pretty big kind of experiment where essentially a contractor takes on doing all of NEPA. And basically, in the beginning, there's a project area, and they develop an agreement with the Forest Service saying we're going to pay for all of the NEPA ourselves, and they hired a very good consulting firm to do that. And then out of that will come a certain amount of both timber sale projects as well as other restoration work. And then they essentially, in this case it was Vaughan Brothers, the mill, get the logs from that, cover the costs of a lot of money they put into NEPA, and it's a big project. I think it's 20,000 acres or something like that. The whole project area is even bigger, but it's a big project. So that is about halfway done. They did the first EA, and I think overall there was some learning for sure, but it seems to have gone okay. There's a potential group from Idaho that might litigate. There's some issues there, but they're going into the second EA right now. So a lot of eyes are on that project. Like, is it going to work? Not just from this group, but across the region. And I think the jury's still out, but it hasn't failed yet, and I think there's some real promise there. Whether or not that type of thing could happen on this forest, I think it's certainly possible. As a group, I mean, NewFIC's been around for over 10 years, and so we're not at that stage yet, but it's certainly possible at some point. And I'm not saying 10 years from now, potentially it would be sooner, but as Matt and others say, you got to crawl before you walk in these groups, or run in that case. So.
The other thing I mentioned is if you look at where the Forest Service has directed resources as part of its collaborative forest landscape restoration program, it's been primarily to sort of dry forests on the east side. And so through the appropriations process, if there is an appropriations process this year, we'll see. A number of us, myself and Jay McGurr, Butler, just to the south of us, are pushing for future projects to actually do some work in the wet forests on the west side. So that's something to stay tuned, and hopefully we'll see some resources brought to there. Other questions? With that, I want to just invite if there's any of the participants who have any closing thoughts that they want to share. If there's anything that we didn't get to that you want to mention, I certainly invite you to comment.
Well, we're really excited to be building a mill here in Shelton. My company is, and hopefully we can get some more wood from the Forest Service as part of this process. And so I think this is going to be good for some Mason County as well.
I'll just say too, we are talking about, okay, what do we do next after this pilot project? And one of the ideas right now is to the upcoming projects that the Forest Service either has NEPA done for or is working on the NEPA. is to take some of the units or parts of those projects and that are in adaptive management areas, and again, work with the Forest Service on trying some different things. And so the NEPA's already done, that's a big hurdle that certainly is, takes a long time to get through, but it's where we can, again, move the ball forward with trying some different things, again, in partnership with the Forest Service. So that's what we're working on next. And one of the projects we're looking at, again, this is the discussion, there's nothing decided yet, we haven't, is up here on the South Fork of the Skokomish.
Yeah, encouraging more participation, a lot of the criticism has helped us, it's helped us grow, it's helped us see our own weaknesses. And, we continue to get it probably individually, but in these public meetings, it's really welcome, and we want to address the issues, we don't want there to be a secret agenda or anything like that, because it really isn't. So, if you get the word out that participation is welcome. We haven't got stoned yet, but, we're trying to get out there and see all the stakeholders and definitely listen. I think this thing a real success.
I want to thank everybody for coming, and again, I just want to reiterate, and I know that there's folks both videoing and in the press here, help us get the word out. If folks want to participate, they can contact my office. There is a website set up for the collaborative. We've got the sign-up sheets, and I invite a couple of you, if you want to take one with you and share it with folks within the community. We invite and we encourage your support. This only works when folks stay involved and you have an ongoing and sustainable effort. I hope if you take nothing more away from tonight, what you take away is the notion that folks who maybe historically have not been seeing eye to eye are actually working through some of these problems. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And this is an effort to have people actually go together and hopefully take our community economically and in terms of forest health further than we've been. I have a sense of urgency about this, and I have an exhaustion with seeing some of the economic challenges that we've seen on the peninsula. I don't think it serves us well in terms of economic health, and frankly, I don't think it serves us well in terms of forest health either. And so that is part of my impetus for being involved in this. And I am very grateful to the folks, many of whom have traveled far away to be a part of this evening, and I'm thankful to all of you for being participants here tonight as well. And with that, don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything we didn't cover, and thank you all for coming. All right, Commissioner. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Yeah, next to your county.
You asked me last year. Well, how are you?
Thanks so much. Thanks for coming.
How are you? I see you. Why see you all the time?
Very excited. Very excited about that. So,
Just come to our jobs. Yeah, Mike was
Knox is
Still